This is Channel 4 with Sign On, Newswatch.
Horror, and shock and horror in the fact that it took hold so quickly. I mean, I happened to be around the castle when it started, and I heard the fire alarm, and some 2 or 3 minutes later, when I came out of the room that I was actually in, you could see the smoke, not as extensive as it is now, but you could definitely see it.
What was your mother's reaction?
Her Majesty was shocked.
Hello. Scenes there of the great fire that swept through Windsor Castle on Friday, November the 20th. The Queen and the royal family in a state of shock at the damage caused to the royal residence from which they take their family name. In a sense, it symbolised the troubles that engulfed the House of Windsor in what was possibly the worst month in the Queen's 40-year reign. Today, we examine some of those problems and look at some of the longer-term implications for the monarchy.
We also look at the role of the press in reporting the events surrounding the royal family. And we ask, as well as reporting, how far do the newspapers influence events? Could it be that nowadays the press and the other media are actually more influential than the monarch herself?
It was a month that got off to a very unpromising start. The Prince and Princess of Wales, whose marriage has been the subject of rumour, gossip and endless newspaper speculation, were on a trip to the other side of the world. But nowadays, nowhere is out of sight of the ever-present eyes of the journalists and photographers who follow every royal move.
The royal flight came to Seoul today through the rays of the setting sun for a colourful Korean welcome. It's officially designated here as a Class B welcome, though. Class A is reserved for heads of state. While the Foreign Office has emphasised the mutual benefit in trade the visit will help cement, all attention from the British press was focused on any mutual signs of affection being shown between the Prince and the Princess. It appears this trip has been specially designed to show the Prince and Princess of Wales in public together. Palace officials hope it will end speculation about their marriage. That book, though, has found its way even here, and a new edition of Diana, Her True Story is due to be published in America soon. After the official welcome, the Prince and Princess attended a wreath-laying ceremony at Korea's National Cemetery. Incense is kept burning in memory of those who died in the Korean War. It was a solemn occasion, but the strain of performing official duties immediately after stepping off an 18-hour flight from prison was clear on both of their faces. Tonight at a luxury hotel in the city centre, though, the royal party have taken over the whole of the top floor for some well-guarded rest and welcome privacy.
That was how ITN reported the first day of the royal visit. 2 people tired and strained after an 18-hour flight, attending a solemn occasion. But how did the tabloid press present the same story? The Daily Mail, November the 3rd.
Charles and Diana face a new crisis. This is the picture that reveals the depth of the rift between the Prince and Princess of Wales. The physical and emotional distance between them is clear.
Even more dramatic, the Daily Mirror.
Tortured. How much longer can this tragedy go on? This is the picture that exposes the torture of Prince Charles and Diana as they are forced to pretend their marriage is back on course. they arrived in Korea under orders to present the image of a loving couple. Instead, stony-faced, they ignored each other, not even exchanging a look. Such coverage was, of course, picked up by the royal party and led to some heated discussions between the Prince and Princess's entourage and members of the press. But while challenging the newspaper's treatment of the couple, officials did seem to concede that their claims were not entirely groundless, as ITN reported on November the 5th.
It was during a series of angry exchanges with the journalists covering the tour in Korea that members of the royal party admitted that all is not happy in the marriage of the Prince and Princess of Wales. The royal couple were touring a 6th century Buddhist temple today, the last day of their official visit. The mission came after they expressed extreme anger about the reports this week speculating on the state of the royal marriage. They said the articles had put enormous pressure on the couple and that such treatment was unfair. They said they hoped the Prince and Princess would see things through, but they had to be given breathing space. They also emphasized there was absolutely no question of an official split.
It has been said to me now by two very senior members in the household, the marriage isn't very well. In fact, it's downright bad. But I don't think that necessarily means they're going to split.
The royal couple also went to a grotto housing a sacred statue of Buddha carved out of a single block of white granite. The air was heavy with incense as they sat cross-legged together in the small cave. They both smiled, but royal watchers noted their eyes didn't meet. The media spotlight is once again focused firmly on the marriage of the Prince and Princess of Wales, and it's very unlikely they'll get the breathing space it's reported they need. The Princess is now heading back to London. The Prince of Wales is remaining in Hong Kong for a series of official engagements over the weekend.
On her return, the Princess of Wales took the unusual step of issuing a personal statement about the press. She particularly picked out reports that she had fallen out with the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. The suggestion that the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh have been anything but supportive and sympathetic is untrue and particularly hurtful. Still, it seemed, nothing could keep stories about the royal rift off the front pages of the tabloids. On Sunday the 8th, the Princess of Wales attended the Remembrance Day ceremony. Another solemn occasion, another sad-looking princess, another photograph seemingly showing a division between Princess Diana and other members of the royal family. And again, the same kind of interpretation, the Daily Mirror.
Rosen out. Sombre Princess Di stands alone, a few feet away but a mile apart from other members of the royal family.
The Daily Mail did manage to produce a photograph of the princess standing somewhat closer to the other members of the royal family, but its message was even more stark. A marriage in name only. More tangible evidence of problems in the royal marriage was to come, in the form of tape recordings, said to be of conversations between Prince Charles and a long-standing female friend. The Daily Mirror.
Camilla Confidential. Charles's secret bedtime phone call.
Prince Charles, it was said, had been having an affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, on and off, for 20 years. This followed claims that there were in existence other recordings of Princess Diana having intimate telephone calls with a close male friend. On November the 14th, the Today newspaper quoted some of what it claimed was on both tapes. Prince Charles to Camilla Parker Bowles.
I love you. I adore you. I'm so proud of you.
And James Gilby to the Princess of Wales.
Love you. Love you. Love you, Squidgy. Love you.
Although Today did quote senior officials at Buckingham Palace as saying it was all a
Plot to destroy Prince Charles.
some newspapers seem determined to interpret anything as evidence of the royal couple's marital problems. On the 17th of November, the Princess of Wales addressed the Drug Prevention Conference. She emphasised that if children felt loved and wanted by their parents, they wouldn't turn to drugs. This was how News at 10 reported it.
The Princess of Wales.
This was a highly personal speech by the Princess, her own homespun philosophy on raising children, keeping them off drugs and out of trouble.
As a parent, I know almost certainly what won't work. Telling children not to do something or trying to frighten them off, as all parents know, almost certainly has the opposite effect. Makers of educational films, please take note.
And after that dig at the experts, the Princess said that love and affection from day one was the answer, a recipe that worked even when marriages were on the rocks.
If the immediate family breaks up, the problems created can still be resolved, but only if the children have been brought up from the very start with the feeling that they are wanted.
And this was how some newspapers headlined the Princess's speech. The Daily Express. The Pain of Being Unloved by Diana. And, varying it slightly, the Daily Mail.
Diana, the pain of being unloved.
And Today, with a full front page spread. The Real Pain of a Broken Marriage by Diana. Then, on top of all that, came the disastrous fire at Windsor Castle. At first, the public reaction seemed to be one of sympathy for the Queen and concern for the damage. But when the question of who would pay for the repairs came up, there was a decided shift. On Monday the 23rd, the Heritage Secretary, Peter Brook, announced to the House of Commons that the castle was the property of the state and the government's responsibility. But not everyone agreed.
The total repair cost hasn't been worked out yet, but the government's in no doubt who's going to foot the Windsor bill. They are.
I therefore have no hesitation in saying that resources will be provided to restore this most precious and well-loved part of our national heritage.
One Tory backbencher suggested a bill of £60 million would only be just over £1 per head of population, and he knew of no one who could object to that. But he did when Labour's Anne Clwyd rose.
There is legitimate public concern that the total cost of repair should not be paid exclusively by the taxpayer.
Dennis Skinner had a call from a constituent whose house caught fire last Friday.
Can you ask a government minister to stand up at the dispatch box, she said, and tell them that they're going to pay my bill as well as the Queen's? I think it's utterly wrong.
It's emerged that a sideboard, a carpet and a painting have been totally destroyed. The Queen will bear those costs. Government money will be for repairs to the structure only. Here in Windsor, during the day, there have been the inevitable discussions about who should pay. Local traders whose livelihoods depend on tourism believe that the government ought to write the cheque, but there is a very strong opposing view by the general public. A straw poll of morning shoppers in Windsor found about 4-1 in favour of the Queen being given at least part of the bill.
She doesn't pay any tax. Why should we pay? Government don't pay, we pay.
No, I feel that half and half. The Queen should go half and the country should go half.
Who do you think should pay for the restoration?
Not the public. I've got very mixed feelings, I don't know. Perhaps if some sort of compromise was to come between the two, then that might make everybody happy.
We all feel that we've all lost something very great here. We all gain from having the castle here, and we feel we should all put in to help pay for it, the restoration.
But the majority of people seem to disagree with the last speaker. Instant opinion polls showed that up to 95% of those asked thought the Queen should contribute towards the cost. The Daily Mail summed up what it called the public mood.
Pressure grows on royals to share Windsor blaze build. Why the Queen must listen.
And on Thursday the 24th, in a speech to mark her 40 years on the throne, the Queen did seem to suggest that she was taking public criticisms to heart.
The Queen used the occasion of the 40th anniversary celebrations to reveal some of her private thoughts and feelings. Sounding tired and speaking through a heavy cold, it was as the nation's monarch and family matriarch that she told of the pain and trouble she suffered over the past 11 months.
1992 is not a year on which I shall look back with undiluted pleasure. In the words of one of my more sympathetic correspondents, it has turned out to be an annus horribilis.
And as the monarchy's been attacked, so she came out to defend, calling for more compassionate judgment.
I sometimes wonder how future generations will judge the events of this tumultuous year. I dare say that history will take a slightly more moderate view than that of some contemporary commentators. He who has never failed to reach perfection has a right to be the harshest critic.
And without referring once directly to the family breakups which have so rocked the House of Windsor, she gave some ground, admitting for the first time that the monarchy was not above criticism.
There can be no doubt, of course, that criticism is good for people and institutions that are part of public life. No institution, city, monarchy, whatever, should expect to be free from the scrutiny of those who give it their loyalty and support, not to mention those who don't. But we are all part of the same fabric of our national society, and that scrutiny by one part of another can be just as effective if it is made with a touch of gentleness, good humor, and understanding. This sort of questioning can also act, and it should do so, as an effective engine for change.
This was a deeply personal message from a monarch whose emotions are usually masked. It was made amongst friends and supporters at the Guildhall, probably on the advice of ministers and advisers. The Queen voicing her own thoughts under pressure to reassure her public that she is listening to growing calls for change.
But if reassurance was what the Queen was trying to give, it seemed to have almost the opposite effect. The reactions of the tabloid press ranged from muted sympathy almost to mockery. The Daily Mail.
Please be kind to us. The Queen opens her heart as never before.
And with an excruciating pun on the words clown and crown, today.
Tears of a crown.
For a long time, there had been pressure on the government and the monarchy to make the Queen pay income tax. Now, with taxpayers' money going to restore Windsor Castle, the campaign gained momentum. The Daily Star on November the 26th. We'll make her pay. Prime Minister John Major wants the Queen to pay up. Despite the storm over her being exempt from paying taxes, the mean monarch has never offered a penny to the Treasury. But Mr. Major and senior cabinet ministers have repeatedly made it plain they would welcome a financial contribution by the Queen. They are annoyed and frustrated that she has turned a deaf ear to the broadest of hints. A what kind of ear, Daily Star? A deaf ear. I suppose we know what you mean. Whether in response to that kind of pressure, or whether it was already in the pipeline, on November the 26th, it was announced that the Queen and Prince Charles would pay tax on their private incomes. And that in future only the Queen, the Duke of Edinburgh, and the Queen Mother would receive payment from the public purse. The Prime Minister, speaking to the House of Commons, was clear that it was not a sudden decision.
But Her Majesty, some months ago, before the summer recess, indicated to me that she wished consideration to be given to changing this arrangement. She asked me then to consider the basis upon which she might voluntarily pay tax, and further suggested that she might take responsibility for certain payments under the current civil list arrangements.
But whatever the Prime Minister said, the tabloids were in no doubt as to the real reason for the announcement. The Sun.
You spoke, she listened. The Queen pays tax, and it's a victory for people power. The people spoke, and the monarch listened. For the first time, the Queen has bowed to the wishes of her subjects. It's a gracious acknowledgement of public disquiet which the Sun applauds.
With the applause of the Sun ringing in her ears, what more could any monarch want? Paul, you work in print journalism as well as television. What do you make of the role of the press in all this?
Well, it would be too much to say that any of the newspapers are anti-royal, but there's an irreverence in the way they deal with the royal family that would have been unimaginable when the Queen came to the throne 40 years ago. Just look at the tone of some of the headlines we've seen. For example, when the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh were said to be angry with the Princess of Wales, the Daily Star had a photograph and headline describing the Queen and Duke as
the Grims.
The Sun reported a rumour that Prince Charles wanted to step aside and let his son William be the next king. The headline:
Charles, give my crown to Wills.
The idea of the monarchy as a mystical symbol of the nation doesn't really square with this open familiarity. Even worse when members of the royal family are quoted as saying things like,
Diana calls Camilla the Rottweiler.
And when the general tone of life in some royal circles is hinted at in headlines like,
Affair? So what? Says Palace Aide.
Could it be that the Queen now regrets the greater openness to the media which she herself introduced during her reign? When the press treats a 1,000-year-old institution like a soap opera, some cherished dreams and privileges are bound to be challenged.
And this week, amidst continuing rumours about her marriage, the Princess of Wales was keeping an appointment with the British Deaf Association, of which she is patron. In London, she launched the new British Sign Language English Dictionary.
I am very happy to be here at the launch, and I hope that it will help you, both deaf and hearing people, to greater interaction. Thank you.
We'll be showing a fuller report on the new dictionary in 2 weeks' time, on December the 19th.
Next week, Rachel Bastiker presents Deaf World. with some fascinating young people's programmes from Sweden.
And Paul and I will be back on Saturday, January the 2nd, with a special hour-long edition of Newswatch, looking back at 1992 and forward to 1993. Join us for that.